All right, our next person is another in-person, Gary Charles. Welcome, Gary. Good to have you here.
All right. Afternoon, kia ora.
Got it.
My name is Gary Charles. I'm a long-term drug law reform activist and the gallery stalker. If you haven't seen me in the gallery, it's probably because I'm sitting above you. Right. My position is that I support the end of punitive prohibition of substances. I do not support amendments to the Misuse of Drugs Act, which continue to allow the Misuse of Drugs Act to be in place. What we're here today is to discuss symptoms of problems that have been caused by the Misuse of Drugs Act, and we're not actually addressing the problem of the Misuse of Drugs Act causing all these problems. I've just listened to the Minister make all these arguments that actually are about getting rid of the Misuse of Drugs Act. Now, this isn't just crazy man in a suit talking. In 2011, the Law Commission recommended, its primary recommendation was the repeal and replacement of the Misuse of Drugs Act. And what I've seen is that amendments to the Misuse of Drugs Act bring about other negative consequences because we're not actually solving the problem, we're just putting more problems in place. Perfect example is medicinal cannabis users are still being arrested and processed through the justice system. The justice system doesn't seem to know what the Ministry of Health regulations are because the stigma from the Misuse of Drugs Act means that the Ministry of Health is too frightened to tell people what the regulations are when they change them because they don't want to be seen to be encouraging consumption. The other thing with amendments is that yes, they are actually just extending the life of this act and bringing on more problems, but it's also creating these barriers, as we've heard, to legitimate medicines for people that need them. The barriers are not just for people suffering from colds. Everybody that's seeking mental health care is being criminalised for self-medicating with prohibited substances because they can't get any treatment when they ask for it. This is another consequence of the Misuse of Drugs Act. We're criminalising people when they're in need of some sort of assistance, locking them up. It is not the help that they need. So I'm 100% convinced by all the evidence I've seen in my time as an adult, since 1975 when this law was passed, that this law is the root cause of all these problems and the reason we're here today. And I strongly recommend that this committee recommends to the government that they repeal and replace the Misuse of Drugs Act as per the recommendations of the 2011 Law Commission report.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you for your submission. Thanks for being here in person and for your continued following in the gallery. Do any members have questions? We have about 1 or 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Would say, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Cameron.
Yeah, I mean, so you're saying that it's not going far enough. You know, we're here talking about the pseudoephedrine.
We're talking about
what is your opinion on that specifically?
With pseudoephedrine, I think that people that require it for a medical condition should have access to it, and that access should be regulated and controlled. The whole thing of the pseudoephedrine ban was that at the time, everyone on my side of the argument was saying, this is not going to work. Nobody listened to us, and we have our whole I told you so moment now, but we're sick of our I told you so moment. Why can't the evidence and the facts be the dominating factors in the consideration of these situations? Why do we have to pretend amending this law is going to fix it? Because it's never going to be fixed. It has been a problem right from the start.
Thank you. James Mega.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. I just had a question about your comment around your opposition to the bill is that it doesn't go far enough and therefore shouldn't be passed. Do you have any concerns that that kind of approach to legislative reform, especially in the misuse of drug space, might lead people to just oppose reform, albeit gradual, in the hopes of getting some sort of comprehensive reform? Do you see any risks with taking that approach?
The only risks I think that there might be is that people would actually have to pay attention properly to this and actually see that the evidence is all in favour of repealing and replacing. You know, this Parliament went through a huge process to get to the recommendation from the Law Commission. And it's been ignored ever since. And I'm getting old waiting for something to happen.
But one more quick sup for James.
Very
and we'll
quickly, but
direct-
just substantively, do you agree with the concept of shifting the classification of pseudoephedrine?
I agree with all prohibited substances being removed from prohibition for safe, regulated control.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Thanks for your time.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming in.